I used to live in a high-rise apartment in downtown Chicago. It was one of those newer places with good security, a front desk, cameras in every hallway, and key fob access to each floor. I felt safe there, especially living alone. I was 27 at the time, single, and had just gotten promoted to a marketing manager role, so this place felt like a reward. But the safety I thought I had was fake. It started with the maintenance guy. He was probably mid-30s, average build, clean-shaven, with a blue jumpsuit and a name badge that just said Ben. I first saw him when my kitchen light went out. I submitted a request through the building app, and he showed up the next day around 10 a.m. He was polite, a little too friendly maybe, but I didn't think much of it. He replaced the bulb and joked about how people never look up, that's why ceiling lights always get ignored. I laughed awkwardly, and he left. 2 days later, I saw him again. He was in the hallway, kneeling next to an electrical panel. When I passed by, he said hey again, like we were already familiar. Again, I brushed it off. Then, the strange stuff started happening. One night, I came home from dinner with friends and noticed my bedroom door was closed. I never closed it. I live alone. I would have noticed. I chalked it up to rushing out and forgetting. The way your mind fills in blanks. But it happened again. The next week, I came home and found the closet light on. It's a pull chain bulb, the kind that doesn't turn on by itself. I don't even use it much. That's when I started to wonder if someone had been in my apartment. I checked the front door, locked. Nothing looked out of place. No signs of forced entry. I even checked the balcony, but I was 15 stories up. No one's getting in from there. I mentioned it to the front desk, just in case. The guy looked at my log and said no one had entered my unit according to their system. The only person who'd been on my floor that day was maintenance. Ben. Still, they assured me all workers were supervised, and I shouldn't worry. But I started locking my bedroom door when I wasn't home, not just the apartment, my actual bedroom. It made me feel better, even if it seemed paranoid. Then came the time I forgot. It was a Monday morning. I was late for work, and I rushed out without locking the bedroom. When I got back that evening, something felt off again. My bed looked too neat. I had left the blanket messy. I know I had. I checked everything. Closet, under the bed, bathroom. Nothing, but the blanket had definitely been moved. That's when I checked the camera I had set up. It was a cheap motion detection cam I bought after the closet light thing. I'd placed it facing the living room. It didn't catch much, but I figured if someone came through the door, I'd know. That night, I reviewed the footage. At 2:17 p.m., while I was at work, someone entered using a key fob. A man, blue jumpsuit. Ben. He walked in like he owned the place. Calm. Casual. He didn't even look around much. Just walked straight to my bedroom. He was in there for about 3 minutes. When he came out, he adjusted the couch pillow, looked into the camera and smiled. Then he left. I froze. I didn't know what to do first. Call the police, the building, my parents. I called the front desk and demanded to speak to the manager. I told them what I saw. They acted shocked. Said Ben wasn't supposed to be in my unit, especially without a request or permission. They pulled his key access and promised to, quote, look into it. I asked if I could see their logs or camera footage. They refused. I called the police next. They took a report, but because nothing was technically stolen and there was no forced entry, they said it was a civil matter unless something escalated. I bought new locks the next day, personal locks for the inside of the apartment, and I ordered 2 more cameras. I didn't sleep that night. 2 days later, I got a knock on my door around 6 p.m. I looked through the peephole. It was Ben. He wasn't wearing the jumpsuit this time, just jeans and a hoodie. He knocked again, then said, "Hey, it's Ben. I need to check the water pressure in the unit real quick." I didn't respond. He kept standing there. After a minute, I quietly backed away, and called the front desk. I told them Ben was outside my door, claiming he needed access. They said, and I quote, "Ben no longer works here. He was terminated yesterday." I went cold. I told them he was outside my door right now. They told me to stay put and call 911. I did. By the time the police arrived, Ben was gone. Security footage showed him entering the building using an old access card he hadn't returned and tailgating another resident into the elevator. The building finally took it seriously after that. They changed the locks on every unit he'd had access to and told all residents about the situation. But here's the part that still messes me up. When I went through my bedroom closet that night, I noticed something odd. There was a small hole just above the closet light, drilled through the drywall. I hadn't seen it before. It was tiny, maybe the size of a dime. On the other side of that wall was the hallway, the maintenance closet specifically. I called maintenance, the new guy, and asked if there had ever been wiring or work done between that space. He said no. That part of the wall was solid. No reason for a hole. I patched it myself, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. How long had that hole been there? How many nights had he stood on the other side of that wall, watching? I moved out a month later. Now, I have a dog, an alarm system, and cameras in every room, but sometimes I still dream about that closet. And in the dream, he's not on the other side of the wall. He's already inside. I live in a quiet part of Portland, in a mid-sized apartment building just off a busy street. I'm on the 3rd floor, and for the most part, it's safe. The area has decent foot traffic, plenty of lights, and no real crime to speak of. I moved here a couple years ago after finishing grad school. I work remotely, so I'm home a lot. Most days feel the same. Coffee, laptop, maybe a walk in the afternoon. I don't post online much, no crazy routines. I keep to myself. About a year ago, I started noticing small things. At first, it was the feeling of being watched, not in a paranoid way. I mean, in the actual someone is watching me kind of way. That weird prickle you get on your neck when you're alone, but somehow not. I'd look out the window and see nothing. I figured it was just nerves. Then one morning, I found a photo slipped under my door. It was a printed picture of me, standing in my kitchen, holding a coffee mug. The lights were off. The photo had clearly been taken through the window. I remember staring at it for what felt like hours. I hadn't told anyone where I lived. I didn't even have curtains open often. That photo had to be taken from the apartment building across the alley. I could almost guess which window it came from. Maybe the 3rd or 4th floor, straight across. Went straight to my building manager, but he shrugged. Said the alley wasn't technically on their security camera's view. There wasn't much they could do. So I bought blackout curtains. For a while, things were quiet again. Then, a few weeks later, I found another photo. This one was taped to my front door. Same angle, same lighting. Only now, I was brushing my hair in the mirror. That mirror was in my bedroom. The window was barely cracked open that day, maybe 2 inches. I hadn't even realized it. I called the cops. They filed a report, said they'd keep an eye out, but unless someone actually broke in or threatened me, their hands were tied. That night, I didn't sleep. I started covering every window. I moved furniture in front of them. I bought pepper spray, a door jammer, even a camera for my peephole. Nothing happened for a few days. Then one night, I was getting ready for bed when my phone buzzed. No caller ID, just a text. It said, "You looked sad today." I felt cold all over. I hadn't left the apartment all day. I checked the locks again. I checked the peephole. I turned on every light and slept with a kitchen knife under my pillow. I didn't respond. I didn't want to encourage it. The next day, I called my brother. He drove down and stayed with me a few nights. We set up a couple extra cameras, one in the hallway, one on the fire escape. But again, nothing. When he left, I considered moving. But leases don't break easy, and I wasn't exactly rich. Then things went quiet. Weeks passed. No texts, no photos, nothing weird. I let myself relax. Maybe it had just been a creep passing through. Maybe the extra cameras scared him off until the photo showed up in my mailbox. It was me again, sitting at my desk typing, but this time I was clearly mid-laugh. Probably watching a video or on a call. I don't remember. But the photo was taken through the tiny gap in the blinds that I hadn't noticed I'd left open. That's when I knew this guy wasn't just watching. He was learning. Learning when I let my guard down. I bought new locks, a motion sensor, even a taser, and I filed another police report. They were polite, but the message was the same. Unless the guy broke in or harmed me, they couldn't do much. Then, about a month ago, the messages started again. This time, it was a photo and a sentence. The photo was of my building, taken from across the street during the day. The sentence said, "You should close your blinds tighter." I went into full lockdown mode. No windows, no lights, unless necessary. I even put tape over my webcam and microphone. Still, I felt watched. Every second, like the air had weight. Then came the worst moment. I'd ordered delivery one Friday night. I was too shaken up to cook. When I opened the door, there was no delivery guy, just a box. It was small, plain, and taped shut. Against my better judgment, I brought it inside and opened it carefully. Inside was another photo, but not of me. This time, it was of my mother, walking out of her car in her driveway. She lived 3 towns over. I hadn't told anyone where she lived. I never posted her online. Under the photo was a note. "You move, she pays." I went cold. I felt my legs go weak. I called my mom, begged her to stay inside, to let the cops know everything. The police finally took it seriously after that. They put an officer on patrol near my place and near hers. Still, they had no suspect, no real lead, and yet the texts stopped. No more photos. For a few weeks, things got quiet again, until this past weekend. I'd gotten used to checking the peephole constantly, just in case. That Saturday, I looked out before bed. Just habit by now, and someone was standing at the end of the hallway, not facing my door, just standing sideways by the stairwell, who was wearing a hoodie, black pants, and a backpack. No identifying features. He stood there for about 10 minutes. I watched him the whole time. Then he left. No knock, no note. The next day, I checked my hallway camera. The footage showed him walking up the stairs, standing there, then turning and walking back down. But at one point, maybe halfway through the video, he turned to face my door and waved, just a small, casual wave, like he knew I was watching. I don't sleep well anymore. I don't use the windows. I don't go out much. They still don't know who he is, and somehow, I think he likes it that way. It had been nearly a year since that last photo. Life had finally started to feel normal again. I'd made some new friends at work, started dating someone, and was even thinking about getting a pet. I still checked my locks a little too often, and I avoided walking alone at night, but the dread had dulled. I thought maybe he'd moved on, or gotten arrested, or died. Then, one night, I was out with my boyfriend, dinner and drinks downtown. We came back to my place around 11 p.m. and were walking up the stairwell to my unit when I noticed something odd. My door was open. Not wide open, just slightly ajar, like someone had pushed it but hadn't fully gone inside. I lived alone. I always triple-check that lock. My boyfriend stepped in front of me and told me to wait by the stairs. He went in first while I called the police again. He did a sweep of the apartment. Nothing looked disturbed. No one was inside. But something was off. I could feel it. When the police arrived, they didn't find signs of forced entry. They assumed I had forgotten to lock the door, but I knew better. After they left, I walked into my bedroom and froze. Pinned to my pillow was a note, a strip of paper taped down at the corners. This time, No photo. Just a message in the same scrawled handwriting. You smiled today. That note broke me more than any photo. Because it wasn't angry. It wasn't threatening. It was observant. Intimate. Like he was still with me, part of my life. I moved again. Changed jobs. Changed cities. No more social media. No more patterns or routines. I even got a dog for protection. It's been 2 years now. Quiet years. Peaceful mostly. But just last week, I found something in my mailbox. No return address. No writing on the envelope. Inside was a photo of my dog walking in my fenced backyard. From the angle, it was taken through the slats. No note this time. Just a photo. A reminder, he's still out there. That night, I barely slept. Every sound made my heart race. I kept the lights on and the dog by my side. The next morning, I called in sick and went through my home one more time, inch by inch, just to reassure myself. But when I opened the utility closet downstairs, a space I rarely used, I found something else. A crumpled receipt. It was from a gas station 2 blocks away. Yesterday's date, time-stamped for 5:42 p.m. It wasn't mine. I checked the security footage from my doorbell cam. It hadn't caught anything unusual. But maybe he knew how to avoid it. Or maybe he had help. I gave the receipt to the police, but I could tell they weren't hopeful. This stalker wasn't just someone watching from afar anymore. He had been inside. He'd left clues. Tokens. A trail of dread meant just for me. I don't know what he wants, or when he'll show up again. But now, I live knowing this. He never left. I grew up in a rural part of Oregon, surrounded by woods, old farmland, and not much else. When I was 23, my husband and I moved into a small rental house just outside of town. It was a quiet area, bordered on 3 sides by trees, and in the back, just beyond the fence, was a large empty field that stretched to the tree line. The landlord told us it used to be part of a cornfield, but it had been unused for years. We didn't think much of it. It gave us privacy, which was all we cared about. That first summer, we enjoyed the place. Long walks, bonfires, the occasional deer wandering near the property line. It was peaceful, but in early fall, something changed. I started noticing small things at first, minor details only someone home all day would catch. I worked remotely, so I was usually the only one there. Sometimes, the gate to the backyard would be open when I knew I'd closed it. Other times, I'd find boot prints in the dirt outside the back door. I told myself it was the wind, or maybe the landlord checking the property. Then I saw him. It was a Tuesday afternoon. I'd been on a Zoom call when I caught movement outside. I looked up and saw a man standing near the tree line, right where the field began. He was just standing there, half hidden by the trees. I couldn't see his face clearly, but he was tall, maybe 6'4", and wearing dark clothes and a cap. I stared at him, frozen. He didn't move, just stood there, watching. After about 10 seconds, I reached for my phone to take a picture, but when I looked back up, he was gone. When I told my husband that night, he chalked it up to a hunter or hiker who wandered too close. But there were no public trails back there, just old farmland and forest. I called the landlord. He said no one should be back there. The next day, I moved my workspace away from the window. Things went quiet for a couple weeks. Then the knocking started. It was always the same. 3 short knocks on the back door, always around 3 a.m. The first time, I thought I was dreaming, but it happened again the next night, and the next. By the 4th night, I was waiting for it. My husband was working a night shift that week, so I was alone. I sat in the kitchen with the lights off, staring at the back door. Right on schedule, 3 knocks. I didn't look out. I didn't move. I just waited. I called the police the next morning, and they said they'd patrol the area, but I doubted they did. Nothing changed. The next night, it wasn't knocking. It was scratching. Slow, deliberate scratching at the back window near the kitchen. Like someone was dragging a stick along the glass. We installed motion lights. The next night, they didn't go off, but the scratching returned. I stopped sleeping. One morning, I went outside and found muddy footprints leading from the back fence to our bedroom window. My husband wanted to set up cameras, but we didn't have the money for a proper system, so we bought a cheap trail cam and mounted it above the back door. 3 nights passed without anything. Then, on the 4th night, we caught him. It was grainy, but the video clearly showed a man walking across the field at 2:58 a.m., stopping just at the edge of the backyard. He stood still for almost 5 minutes, then moved out of frame. The next clip showed him suddenly at the back door, face hidden under a cap, reaching up, touching the camera, then stepping back and looking directly into it. He smiled. We gave the footage to the police. They said without a clear face or license plate, there wasn't much they could do. Probably just a trespasser, they said. So we bought more trail cams, more lights, even a second lock for the back door. Things stopped for a while. 2 weeks of silence. Then came the voice. It was early morning. The sun hadn't come up yet. I was half awake when I heard it. Someone whispering my name. From outside the window, Emily. I froze. Emily. This time it was clearer, closer. I leapt out of bed and pulled the curtains. No one there, but the trail cam caught him again, just outside the window, standing still, mouth moving. He was saying my name. We left that day, packed up and moved in with my parents until we could find somewhere else. The landlord didn't argue when we broke the lease. I think he knew something was off about that place. 2 months later, the police called. They had arrested a man trespassing near a different home a few miles from ours. When they searched his car, they found a folder. Inside were photographs taken through our windows. There were also hand-drawn maps. Our house, yard, surrounding field, all sketched in detail. Dates written in the margins. Times. Notes. They never told me everything that was in that folder. They didn't have to. The man had no connection to us. No reason, no motive, just obsession.
If you enjoyed these chilling tales and want more true horror stories from the shadows, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to Hauntica, and tap the bell icon so you never miss what's lurking next. Your support helps keep the darkness alive and the stories coming.